whatever. Hey, look, man's got 50 ways up on his little whiteboard. Yeah, brownie points. Don't know if that's sucking up or not. I'm not sure. Really. I don't take kindly to that. I wonder who's going to come back first. I think that's. Oh no, it's Dan that came back first. Dan came back first. Damn. Right then, some more guitar stuff. The reason why the guitar is like this, I think it's probably the second or even the most important part about Coldplay behind Chris Martin's vocals. Look at A Head Full of Dreams, the song, right? Funky strumming, slide guitar, single note bass style lines, and then the textural high single note lines, all complementary, yet they catch your ear without distracting from the song. I would just love to hear like a vocal and guitar only version. And I can't even begin to think how much fun it must be to like just to record those guitar parts. I think he must just sit down. He probably has some direction from Chris Martin and things like that, but like he's got so much freedom, and that comes from those soundscapes. And like we said, with the production being way more like, I mean, they've worked with Brian Eno. There's a direct comparison to U2 anyway with Coldplay. I think they've taken what U2 did with like All You Can't Leave Behind 2000s era, and then really just ran with that. You could say they're kind of the U2 of our generation, but that's kind of a big kind of statement to make.
That's a big boy.
The guitar kind of had to live somewhere else. The electric guitar, that is. Acoustic guitar was still there. I really like all the folk stuff that they play. Like I yearn. That's one of my favorite parts about Coldplay is just the folky kind of songs, which you do get like 3, 4, even on like Milo. I think you get some nice acoustic guitar songs. Even Ghost Stories, I'm like, you wouldn't think that based off the singles. So I think he has complete freedom. I think he had to rework how he integrated his guitar parts into those kind of poppy songs. But yes, question for Dan first, and then to Mez, same question. The guitar is the most integral part of Coldplay sound behind Chris Martin's vocals. Agree or disagree, and why?
Yeah, I think, agree or disagree? I think agree. I think, you think about the first 2 albums. You think this, for some reason, In My Place, the song, I think it's the second track of Rush of Blood.
Yeah.
That is a guitar led song, and then you go all the way to Adventure of a Lifetime, where the guitar is still playing that prominent role. And you know that piano also has everything starts with piano. I can imagine that most of the songwriting starts with Chris Martin at a piano. And as you said about Speed of Sound and the way that the guitar and piano are both playing the same line, they're both trying to, I feel like, throughout the whole entire time of the albums, they've been trying to get the guitar to bring out all the perfect melodies that work with the songs. They're trying to like emphasize the melodies and even throwing back to even earlier in what we're talking about, and the idea that they're really good at melodies by adding that element of the guitar back in that app, or the piano back in that app. I feel like that's just made Coldplay into what they are. And as you said, even with the folky stuff, that shows you sort of how there's a range of how they want to be delicate with how they add their textures, or they want to make it so it's in your face. They know which way to go for what song, and they know what's strong. They know what's the strong melody. They know what's the strong riff or guitar line or anything like that. And they focus on that. And then everything else gets pieced around it. And even like you're saying, the bass is like, the bass becomes over the course of, I'd say most of Coldplay, it's a texture rather than a part. I feel like you're right. I feel like the guitar definitely stands really strong with the rest of the music, and definitely helps bring out their elements and the strongest parts of them. So I agree with the statement.
Love that. And I could further push this point that you look at Music of the Spheres, we've got to stop bashing the album, but I really can't think of any memorable guitar parts from that album apart from like a funky strum like near the top of the guitar, which feels stock, and that stock guitar riff. And it seems to line up with that thinking that, okay, it's not that great of an album. You could say it's their weakest work because the guitar work isn't great. But you look at all of the rest of their stuff and you go, oh, that's a guitar. Oh, there's like 5 guitars here. Oh, wow, he's doing that. Like magic.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Like to me, I think that's maybe the misstep rather even than the collaborations. Mez, even as a guitar player, like I want to hear your take on their guitar work because, I don't know if I've even explained it to you, but I don't know where Dan's head maybe is musically, but like, oh, Dan was going to say something. Go on then, boy.
As a quick point, we mentioned Maroon 5 earlier. That's the same thing where they were based off, it was more based off the instrumentation of what they were doing, and it was really clever, and guitar was a prominent fixture in it, but that disappeared. I mean, you had like moves like Jagger, which is like that sort of era is the transition, and then it turns into, well, now it's Adam Levine, isn't it? And I think by them keeping the guitar, it creates the band element rather than it being just Chris Martin. And I think that's what's important. That's just the point I wanted to make.
And well, I will bring that up after Mezzes because I've got a big chunk of that, which I always compare Coldplay and Maroon 5 all the time. But I can't speak for Dan. Maybe I can't speak for Merritt a little bit, but I'll just say for me, I remember that, getting in the guitar, 17, 18 years old. I'd always be attracted to what the guitar part was doing and whether that was a barometer if the song was good or bad. So if the riff was great, yeah, the song's great. Songs that didn't have a strong guitar part seemed to never have that, didn't have that good of positive effect on me. Obviously now it's changed because I guess I'm more interested in what it sounds like or the songscapes. And again, when you write your own stuff or just get chucked in with certain things, it definitely changes. But Mez, as a guitar player, how nourishing is Coldplay to you? How did it kind of affect you from that stance? And do you agree or disagree with the fact that the guitar is, second or even the most important element of their sound?
I would definitely agree to quite a strong extent. It's very, again, to me, it's like the melody. You almost don't notice it's there, but obviously it's there because it's such a texture and because it's such an integral part of the song's construction. I mean, 10 years ago, I would have been looking for the guitar for nourishment. Nowadays, not so much, less so. But it's I'd liken him somewhat, and here it comes. Oh, we knew he'd do this.
There we go.
I'd compare him to I'd say he's a modern day Brian May because he's very, very appropriate in what he does.
Interesting.
Strong.
Everything he plays just seems to fit so wonderfully. The parts are always so wet. It's almost like he's delicately gone through quite a few processes and just kind of been like, oh, can I do that? Can I put that there? He's very, very much, I feel like there's a lot of thought gone behind it. I did a bit of homework on him because of course I did. He's a guitarist, I'm a guitarist. And he was always extremely interested in music when he was learning. He listened to apparently various Hendrix and Clapton records, which is a classic. Every guitarist goes through that phase. And then he was his brother Tim introduced him to My Bloody Valentine, Sonic Youth, Stone Roses, George Harrison, and U2. Now that last one I can hear come through in droves. Even if I hadn't read that, I'd be like, "There's U2 in there." Like absolutely,
yeah, it does border. To be a little bit critical, it does border on the edge, nearly ripping off the edge, and Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead. Those are the sounds he's making. But you know what? I'm okay with that. Rip them off. They're the best people to rip off.
Yeah, I think it's cool that he transitioned from listening to the crazy like in your face guitar to subtle, to actually crafting a song rather than being like I'm the song. It's like I'm a layer,
and keeping guitar in relevant music as well, which everyone was like, guitar died in 2010 or whatever. It's like absolutely not.
Well, this is kind of the thing, isn't it? It's the whole thing of guitar music and where's it gone. We're going to invite Rick Beato in a minute to give a big talk on, this would sound great if there should have been guitar on this, man. I'm not going to sit here and slag off the top 10, but yeah, there is an organic nature when a guitar is involved, and because it very much seems, from what I've heard, that it's either acoustic, very sort of human, organic sounding acoustic, or it's the 72 telly, which he plays. I'm full of the facts here, kids. With effects, and I think that's really cool. You know, being in a function band, we all understand the importance of serving the song rather than making it all about yourself. And that's what he does. He does it so wonderfully. He serves the song. He makes it much more of a, yeah, he just credits it so well. And I mean, instead of it being like, oh, is there room to squeeze guitar in there? It's like some of these songs wouldn't work without his work on them.
1000%.
Mhm.
1000%.
Fun fact. When he was 10, he was a part of a rap group.
Nice. Weren't we all?
Yeah.
I was in a
Big
rap
Fizz
group called
coming in hot.
Sly Kitty Cats. I was in a rap group called that.
Nice.
Did one gig.
He experimented with computer
Don't laugh, Dan.
music.
It's my emotional journey.
Oh, it's all part of it, isn't it?
we did all these things that I've done by the Killers. That was good. I played on piano and tried to impress a girl that I never went out with. So good stuff. Anyway, guys, carry on.
How'd that work out for you, mate?
Not great. So.
And he used beats consisting of dog barks, which I think is a very important point to bring up. I hear so much of that come through. There's
so many like canine tones on Coldplay.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree. I think it's very integral, and I think it's an obvious statement to say that the tunes would not be the same at all without his work. And yeah, he was a part of the Scouts as well when he was 11, and he still likes the uniform. And here's one more fun fact for you, which I could not pass. I could not pass this one.
Oh God.
He said that one night when he was playing with friends on a field, they had an encounter with an angry sheep, which ran over and attacked him multiple times. And for that reason, he has never worn wool or eaten lamb since.
Top man.
Imagined.
So yeah.
So
fair enough.
Good stuff.
Yeah, but no, I agree, Marv. I think he's great. I think he's really cool. And he's only ever been a part of Coldplay and one other group. I've got it here somewhere. Let's find it. Come on.
Find out. Yeah. And again, same members ever since their inception.
Yeah.
You know, as like recorded work output.
He guest starred on Ian McCulloch's solo album, Sidling.
Nice.
And he also made a cameo appearance in Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah. Along with Chris Martin.
Oh, yeah.
I think. Is that right?
I believe so.
Well,
nice.
World Champions done Game of Thrones, Red Wedding, a Game of Thrones.
Yes, you're right. Yes, correct, indeed.
Yeah.
But he was overshadowed because bloody Ed Sheeran had to crowbar his way in. And funnily enough, all Ed Sheeran did was he played the man who could play guitar and sing. So,
well, at the next Ginger meeting, bring that up to Ed. Be like, oh, you overshadowed Matey Boy. Because you have those meetings, right? You have Ginger meetings?
I'm too cool to hang out with him these days.
You got kicked out, didn't you? You got kicked out of the meetings.
I outdrank him and he got upset.
Fair enough, mate.
Yeah.
Another quick point about Coldplay staying culturally in the know. Another interesting thing is that the bass player actually is like super into his fashion. He has his own fashion line.
Yeah.
If you look at his like socials, it's just more the artistic style and the sort of different side to clothes and like being more arty. And if you actually look at their last few tours, that's something they've really focused on, and you can tell that he's had if he's into that sort of that side of art, then that will also help the rest of the band understand what's happening in the world around them by someone else who's into a complete different artistic sort of style.
Yeah,
you know, I think that's quite relevant to how they've grown as well. I think.
Yeah, it's like a passive thing that happens in the background that you don't necessarily see. Yeah, completely agree.
I think it's just quite interesting.
It is, man. It is. Yeah, I think guitar is second because this backs up this point about the piano. I think the piano really, you know, and Chris Martin as a whole, the piano sounds are fantastic, and they provide the lineage to their debut. So The little snippet of piano we hear as Beyonce sings in Hymn for the Weekend, that took me right back to Trouble. The way it sounded. They always get great sounding pianos. And it's like the piano in Coldplay represents Britain, in that it shows the roots of the band rather than a British flag on the back of a white van next to a photo of like a cartoon bulldog with a fag out of his mouth being like, pints and pies. Like, it's not like that, but it is authentically British every time it's being played in the song. It's got an old charm to it. And I think you talked about Chris Martin live, like, not being pitch perfect or anything like that. And I think it's intentional on records. I really like that human element of it, because if you think about everything around Chris Martin, let's say Popper, let's say Milo onwards, everything is quite, let's just say quantized or perfect or made to sound very, very good at its truest pitch or form. But Chris Martin provides that human element where he might be a little bit off key. He might falter a little bit in his work, in his singing, but I think that's intentional. And I actually like that. It brings a human element. Yeah, it brings a human element to it. And again, another risk. They take a lot of risks in that band. Now, this one I don't know if Dan's noticed this, but I definitely did, and I don't know if it's fully true. But prove me wrong, Dan. The drier the Chris Martin vocal, the better the song.
Ooh,
I never noticed that, but there was a couple of songs where I'm like, there's a lot of delay. He's kind of buried here, not liking it as much. But the songs like, Fix You or things like that, like very, very like How We Are Now, right? Very podcasty, very compressed, up in your face, like how Chili Peppers are. Like, to me, they're the better songs. Now, I can't back it up, but Dan, can you prove me wrong, or do you have any opinions on that? The drier the Chris Martin vocal, the better the song. You can chime in as well.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not 100% certain, but maybe you could say that when something like that happens, where there's been a delay or a massive reverb slapped on his vocals, that it might not be not his decision. Maybe it's more of a bigger picture. I think like when I Need a Friend off of Everyday Life, where it's like an a cappella, and there's like, I think when they use it correctly, but it's a really tricky statement, I think. I mean, what examples have you got from both ends that you can talk about?
Well, again, it's vague because it just kind of falls into like their eras. It's like a non-specific song in my head, but I just remember, because I think one thing with Coldplay, like maybe lyrically, there's not much for me to kind of connect to. That might just be because I'm bulk listening, and my mind doesn't necessarily go to the lyrics a lot. I do get caught out on lyrics sometimes, and they draw me in, but I'm way more, how is it musically?
I agree.
Maybe stuff like Fix You, to my mind, when I listen back into my head, seems to have just a very dry vocal. And there are things that pop up. I mean, Everyday Life, they're like the is it WOTWPOTP, which I really, really like. That's just him singing normally. It's maybe not as dry as this, and it's just very normal. Or Guns, things like that. Just very, maybe not to say dry then. Let's just say like a very human element, just a recorded vocal with like little to no processing, to me brings out a better song than heavily echoed, like Adventure of a Lifetime, that era, Head Full of Stars. I gotta go back again here. I can never remember it. Yeah, Head Full of Dreams. Like, think of that album and think of the songs that are there, maybe the singles and things like that. Like, look at Paradise. For me, I think that's quite a dry vocal. Again, I'm very, very assuming here, but think of the verses.
It's pretty dry.
And to me, that's a good song. But I think of stuff like Adventure of a Lifetime, which is a good song, but like maybe not as good as Paradise. And then you think of some of the album tracks. Again, Music of the Spheres, there's quite a lot of vocal effects on that. Maybe not as good. I could be stretching it, and it might be something for you to go and listen to, like after the fact. You might be like,
I feel like that's something that I will definitely think about when I listen to them again. And another part of that could be your inevitable connection with the first few albums where it is as raw as it can be from them.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we always talk about artists bringing back elements of their old selves to bring back. And I think in a really subtle way, you're always going to think that if you hear like loads of delay and reverb on his vocals, you're going to be like, wow, this isn't what I know. You know, it's all about establishing what you know / what you want to think about something on a completely neutral platform, isn't it? So like listening back, you're going to hear the Fix You, which is dry vocal or anything from Parachutes, etc. You're gonna think about that, and soon, it's hard to determine, isn't it? It's just something I'm going to listen out to, I think, and I'll come back to you boys with an opinion on that when I
do it. But might be interesting. And again, because that's then a textural thing and they're very soundscape esque, you could say from album 3 onwards, definitely. It adds to that element. So maybe, like I said, having that drier vocal with the piano that sounds like that nice, almost chorusy, out-tuney piano, and then the guitar work. Those 3 elements maybe are what make Coldplay, and everything else is a texture, which isn't to say, or isn't to discount anything else. That's just that maybe they sit down, you know, Chris comes in, he goes, all right, lads, I've made a song up here. You try your best, you don't succeed. I'll sing that, I'll do that. Guitar comes in, and then everything else gets layered on top. That's actually quite a nice thing to have, isn't it? A nice luxury. Mez, if you noticed any of that, like the really dry vocal and then versus a very layered vocal.
I have, yes, and I do have a point to make. Maybe it's like a confidence thing with the better songs. When they know that they're very, very good, and you know, it's just rhythm and melody. Things like Fix You. It's maybe they're just like, we're confident that this sounds good no matter what. And why do we use effects? Sometimes to enhance the sound, sometimes to give it a particular feel or like genre block or something like that. But more often than not, would you feel better playing a straight DI'd guitar with reverb or with no reverb?
Well, with reverb.
Right. So maybe it's a case of, well, I like that, but I don't know. Maybe we could hide it a little bit, or not hide it, but take away the attention. I heard of a producer. I think we all know him. I can't remember exactly who it was, but this producer's technique. Say you've got like a punk band and your singer can't sing on purpose. This producer would push that feature right to the front. So it doesn't sound like a mistake. It sounds like they've gone, okay, we've got this punk band. Now all we need is a singer who can't sing. And all you can hear is that singer who can't sing. Yeah. Maybe it's that kind of deal. Maybe it's like I don't know, they really want to push the melody more so than how soft the vocal is, how rounded it is.
Yeah.
But if you compress it and really push it up front, but also it means your ear is caught by that melody more so than anything else. I'd like to follow on and make a point to say that, and this is going to sound insulting, but it's really not meant to be. Do you boys get the impression that Chris Martin has a really sort of regular singing voice? I don't mean that in terms of you can't tell it's him because it's so run of the mill. I mean, it sounds like he's got a really, especially earlier on, it sounds like he's got a really, how do I explain this? It's like the difference between a guitarist who knows the pentatonic and has practiced it to a guitarist who can sweep and tap and do all this mental stuff.
Yeah.
But he can also sing really well. Do you see what I mean? There's a lot of natural talent going on there, as opposed to here's a vocal technique, do this. And I think this feeds back into the point Dan was saying about it. Sometimes when he's singing live, he can be a tiny bit pitchy. Do you think he's got like a relative? I'm explaining this terribly.
No, you're not, because I've got the answer in my head.
It.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it's like instead of a singer singing, it's like one week they all turned up to practice and their singer didn't turn up. Yeah. So they went, okay, who's the most confident here? And Chris went, I'll do it. And he's just now the singer. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of how it feels to me.
I think it's the singer-songwriter thing. So
Yeah.
because he can write great songs, and another positive point, the songwriting was solid from the get-go. Like from the
Absolutely, yeah.
get-go, like they know how to write a song,
Mm.
specifically Chris Martin. Maybe he's got a limited set of skills in terms of like flipping to head voice and vibrato and all these other kind of technical things that, you know, people like Whitney and Mariah and all the kind of divas or Chris Cornell's or anything like that, a typical rock singer. He falls in the singer-songwriter canon, but he's very unique. The second you hear his voice, you know it's him, which adds that
Yes.
human element. And I think it's leaning into those imperfections that work. His range is quite wide. I mean, he goes very, very low on certain songs, which I really, really like. And there's like with Everyday Life, which seems to be their most expansive work. He's like yelling and going quite high. So again, another risky thing to do. That's the best way I could answer that, is like, I'm not going to go to him to learn singing, but
No.
if I wanted to sound like myself and get into like taking away Americanisms and how do you get this through, he would be the person I would study. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I was just going to say as well, there's certain other things. So like I used to do it, and I still kind of do it from time to time. Instead of just singing a high note, he'll slide up to that high note.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's another thing where it's like, it's not bad quality as such, but a lot of professional vocal coaches now would kind of go like, don't sing it like that, sing it like this. But it's almost like he's been told that, and he's gone, I'll sing it how I want to sing it. I'll sing it how Chris Martin sings it.
Yeah.
And there's a high level of personality and being able to relate to that, because obviously when a non-musician goes to a gig, they're going to sing because music gives them joy. But if they're not perfect singers, it doesn't necessarily matter, because Chris Martin isn't someone I would call a virtuoso in terms of singing technicality, which is what I mean. So it's almost perfect in that he's singing and playing very, very memorable melodies that most people would be able to sing, because he's not exactly a virtuoso himself. You've
hit the nail on the head there, Merritt, and that's that led me onto a conversation with a singer called Sophie, who was Dan's lead singer in his function band. We were listening to Yebba. If you know who Yebba is, like insanely good. Like if you want to sing every single note in about 3 seconds, like she's the woman to go to. Absolutely brilliant. And I said to her, because she was trying to sing it about on the way back from a gig. And she was like, I can't really sing this bit or that bit. And I said to her, like, well, I said, here's a question, like, do you find it harder to emotionally connect to this song that you can't sing along to because you have to engage the kind of functionality of your voice and go like, right, I need to try and do this and that and that? And she was like, yeah, I actually kind of do, because it's not why I go to the song, because I want to try and sing along to it. But, you know, you can't. It's like you said, if you're going to go to a concert and there's a high, like I Believe in a Thing Called Love, the really high bit, it's like, I can't sing that. So you just stop. So I think, again, that's another charm and positive of Chris Martin's vocals, that it's the same with Noel Gallagher's voice. Like you can sing along to these songs fairly easily. Maybe there's a couple that you need to either practice or just, you know, maybe learn a little bit of singing techniques, but like that's the reason why they are good. And it further proves the point that you do not need to be a virtuoso on any instrument to write a good song. I think that's a complete fallacy. And that's the reason why, especially on like a guitar, a stringed instrument, it doesn't really matter where you are or what it looks like. It's what the sound is. And that perfectly sums up Coldplay. Dan, please, as the expert, weigh in on this, because us two are just waffling. I say us two, I'm waffling. Just talk about Chris Martin's voice.
Well, as a person, if you've watched any interview, he's a bit of a nervous wreck. He doesn't have a lot of confidence, which is, you know, everything you're chatting about here. It just goes, him as a person to him as a musician, they just connect, obviously, as a person. But that shows you the sort of, You know, he's a bit pitchy. He's this. He's not a cocky singer. He's not, again, you were saying it, Yebba. You know, all these musicians who are just ridiculous at what they do, you know, and in order to fulfill that for people, you need to be really confident in what you're doing, you know. And Chris Martin seems to be like, he's a songwriter who, you know, has to sing. Like you were saying before, he has to sing because he's writing his songs and they're specifically for him and for his own outlet that satisfies his lack of confidence that he has. And I feel like that's a big part of what you get from Coldplay is, you know, he's like any other human being, and his songs and his voice is exactly relatable in that sense as well for everyone else. And that's what's just catapulted them into the stratosphere, because they're so relatable.
Yeah.
And goes back to the conversation of when his voice isn't dry. It's not, it doesn't fit, it feels like something completely different. It doesn't feel like him. And also the point you made, Mez, where, you know, maybe they're not so confident on a song. And because of the way he is as a person, to me, that point relates to it so much that you can see that being a thing. You could be like, oh, well, you know, this song, maybe it's not got a strong melody. Let's just try and put some effects on it and try and create a sound rather than it being about the song within the sound, you know? I feel like that's a big thing. I think him as a person and his voice, I mean, his voice is obviously great and has its, maybe doesn't have its best moments sometimes, but that's just what life is. And that's kind of what he represents. And I think that's how he's so relatable.
Yeah, that's it. Nail on the head. Yeah.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Yep.
No more needs to be said on that one, I tell you. Let's go to the Coldplay Maroon 5 comparison equation, because we did mention that, and I think it's very important. So I always lump these two bands together and compare them endlessly. The fact that both bands have morphed into the lead singer's solo outfit, and that they were both rock bands that, quote unquote, sold out or moved with the times due to label pressure, you know, things like that, which we've seen with bands like The Offspring and Weezer, where it's like, you know, 2009, 2010, it's like, okay, this is bad. What are you doing? You've ruined your legacy. How wrong was I? So after listening to all of this, it's like, okay, I think that's a commonly held belief of music listeners that only hear the singles from these bands and follow that chronology. Of course, you're going to think this. The guitars get less and the keyboards get more. The female guest vocal becomes more prominent. They both become very, very big bands. But because they were and still are two very big bands, we forget about all of the other bands that did the exact same thing to a lesser or forgotten reaction, like I mentioned just before. Obviously, in Coldplay's case, do the guitars actually get less? You know, they don't. They actually get more. They get more creative and layered. And then why does the guitar have to be the barometer of whether a band is good or bad? You know, that could be if you're a guitar player yourself and that's what you go for, or you just simply don't hear it because, or maybe you just, you know, you're a rock player, so you want to hear riffs and you don't, you know, I'm not going to go to a butcher and moan that they haven't got any vegan products. Like, that's just dumb. That's just dumb. So maybe that's a part of that. I can't speak for Maroon 5 so much. I think Maroon 5 maybe do fall into that category. I haven't listened to all of their albums song by song, but yes, the guitar parts seem to get more bland, and it does seem to be the Adam Levine project. Coldplay, I would say absolutely not. What do you think of the Coldplay and Maroon 5 comparison, Dan? Like, are there any similarities? Is there any truth to that statement that they're both kind of the same, that they've morphed into a solo outfit? Go for it.
It's a tricky one because I can see how people will look at Coldplay and where's my webcam gone? There we go.
It looked like you were hiding away from the question.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
It's gone again.
There we go.
Okay. Dan Camden, the heated question remains. You must answer.
The heated question. Okay. So, you know, it's interesting because people will see Coldplay in the same way of Maroon 5 as you're saying, you know, and because I haven't followed Maroon 5 throughout their career, and because I haven't listened to the full albums of where they've got to that point where it seems like the Adam Levine show, I feel like I can't have a full statement on it. But
of course,
it's very similar, isn't it? It's a similar feeling. And then that's made me question myself, like, you know, like, oh, okay, so Maroon 5 could actually be pretty decent apart from their singles, but I haven't listened to it. I just hear what the general, like, sort of maybe the more musician side of their story about Maroon 5 and how they are, you know, because the riffs and like Sunday Morning and things like that from Songs About Jane, you know, that's like, some of that stuff is awesome, but
Great.
it's changed.
That whole
hasn't
album
it?
is great. Yeah.
And that's what you're looking for. And it's a similar journey. It's hard to describe, really, isn't it? It's hard to, but like, I think maybe because Adam Levine, if you look at Adam Levine and Chris Martin as individuals themselves, Chris Martin is not someone who puts himself out there in that sort of same light. And as I said, he likes a collab and he likes getting up on stage with people, but he's not someone who like makes sure his beard's perfect in the morning, get his hair right, make sure he's like built. He's not like that sort of person, is he? So you don't get that same feeling that he's like crawling towards the limelight. You see him just enjoying himself, being himself, and going out there and doing that. Whereas it feels like Adam Levine, because of the way, you know, soon as Songs About Jane was out, next thing, Moves Like Jagger, get some other singers in, get some other people in. Let's build that popularity. You get a sense of how different that actually is from his character and the way he's like doing guitar solos topless and it's just him and then there's Banda at the back of the stage, you know, like that's what it's turned into, isn't it? It's just, and you can see it, you can just see the big difference. I feel like it's not, I can see how people have that opinion and how people would think that on the same as Coldplay, but if you genuinely look at the one person it's supposedly about in both bands, you can tell that Maroon 5 have just been spoon-fed money by the record label and been told, right, you go write some pop hits and go do some collabs with people and get your top off. That's kind of, it's more about the look than it is about the music, and you can see that.
I completely agree. And to quickly sum up a point I've got here that I don't want to go too much on, Coldplay are really good with the singles and opening tracks telling you exactly what the album's going to sound like. And I think that's a really good, strong feature of those. But if we were to look at the Coldplay singles and just take out everything else and just use that as their chronology, so you're just going to follow that, which I guess for me, and to a lesser extent, Mez, that was all we had in terms of knowledge of Coldplay. What was the single? I'm not going to listen to track 7. You know what I mean? I was only going to listen to Him for the Weekend and all the songs that I can't remember the names of. But, you know, Rihanna starts popping up. Beyonce starts popping up. BTS, you know. But then you look at their earlier work, it's like, that sounds like a band. That sounds like a band. Oh, wait a minute. Pop. Oh, wait a minute. Paradise. Oh, that's dubsteppy EDM. So I don't think it's like a surprise if that assumption was there, because that's what I thought. And you can just see it. You're like, well, yeah, obviously they're not playing pounding drums anymore. That's a drum machine. And oh, cool. Beyonce was really popular at that point. Rihanna was really popular at that point. Who's popular now? BTS, Jacob Collier, Selena Gomez. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's just like a wild statement. It's not as wild as like, they're shit because they're shit. What's your daughter's name? Apple. That's shit. Like, it isn't a dumbfounded thing. Mez, would you kind of agree with that? And you can see why people would have that opinion.
I would. And just to follow on from your point comparing the two, Coldplay and Maroon 5, in 2018, a website called The Tilt, which I'm assuming is some sort of entertainment magazine website, whatever, they did a vote on which iconic pop rock band is your favorite, Coldplay or Maroon 5.
Ooh.
Now I'm gonna ask you both. I'm gonna ask you both what you think the results were. Marv, go.
Is it? Can I ask a question before the thing? I'm gonna say Maroon 5.
I'm gonna say Maroon 5 as well.
I agree with Dan.
Well, unfortunately, you're both correct.
Yay!
However, the vote was Team Maroon 5, 70.6%, versus Coldplay's 29.4.
No.
That is how many people prefer Maroon 5 to Coldplay, which blows me apart, by the way.
Is that an American website?
Yes. Which would
That
explain all.
That would be my
would
question.
explain
Yeah. I wonder what that would be like with the British website. That was
I
a
would
British
also
one.
wonder. On top of
It
that,
would be Coldplay, 100%. It'd be
of course it would,
Coldplay.
yeah. In 2016, I have a Daily Star, what do you call it?
Article. There we
That's a
go.
boy.
See, that's
I have
coming from a dyslexic. I've just corrected you. Article. All right.
Yeah, there we go.
You need any help with any more words, Bez?
No.
Okay.
The video is unavailable, so I'm very upset about that. But this is 20. Actually, no, it was updated in 2019, but it was posted in 2016.
Oh, yeah.
Coldplay were mistaken for Maroon 5 during the Super Bowl.
What?
Yeah. They had quite the task keeping focus on them at the Super Bowl halftime shows, thanks to the addition of Beyonce and Bruno Mars. I remember that well because people in the metal community were posting a picture of all of them together going, "This is why I listen to metal." And I made a really ranty post being like, if that's why you listen to metal, then you suck. The whole point of metal is you listen to what you want and get away from the whole genre thing of popular music and being told what to listen to. So shut up. But even when the band were on stage by themselves, they still struggled to make a statement because some people didn't know who they were. This is 2016.
Yeah.
Mind you, this is the Daily Star, so you know they should be honoured. I'm even
credible source. I like it.
So yeah, that's an interesting one. That is an interesting one, and there's an entire. I was going to read it, but I'm really not.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you. It is a lineage that these two bands get lumped together, and it's not just out of thin air. And they both seem to, on the surface, to morphed into solo acts. But I can only speak for Coldplay that is very, very far from the truth.
Yes, I quite agree. I was going to read this out, but
give us the gist. Go on.
It looks like a forum. It is a forum.
Okay.
Of people. The title of the forum is "Taking Sides: Maroon 5 versus Coldplay." And I'll tell you what, my left hand's going to be scrolling. I should make this motion every time I scroll up and how long it is.
Okay, here we go then. So this is for the people listening on Spotify. That's about 7, 8. Scroll 9,
3,
10,
4, 5,
11,
8.
12, 13, 14, 15. 15 scrolls I counted there.
And they're all singular comments. It's a big argument. I'm not even going to link it. I was going to, but my point was, this isn't just something that Marv's gone, I'm going to pull these two bands together and try and crowbar them in. It seems to be an actual thing. Yeah. People are comparing them. Having said that, if I was Chris Martin, I would laugh at that. I'd just be like, whatever, you can keep Adam Levine as far as I'm concerned. Don't get me wrong. Love Adam Levine. He's great. Amazing guitarist. People don't realize that.
Very good guitar player.
But in terms, I'd much rather be the accomplished songwriter that Chris Martin is, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, the comparison is there, and it's there for all to see. And all I did to find these was type in Coldplay Maroon 5 on Google. So I urge anyone to do that because it's very interesting. Some of the things that pop up as videos, and of course, stuff, apparently,
images.
2018. We had Over You by the Chainsmokers and Coldplay featuring Maroon 5.
How weird.
Wow.
So
how weird.
They're on a track together. I didn't know that.
Nor did I. But the more I think, it seems weird, the more I think about it, they're not really the counterparts of each other. It's not like Coldplay are the British Maroon 5 and the Maroon 5 are the American Coldplay.
They're different.
But there are similarities. But is really the only similarity that they've changed their musical style? Camvin, would you say that's the only thing in essence? Or is it just because they were a rock band that went pop?
Yeah, it's pure style, isn't it? Absolutely pure style.
Of course.
Set similar journeys, because Maroon 5 was more involved in the whole idea of Adam Levine being the singer and being the main attraction. It then made people think that Chris Martin is that, you know.
Yeah.
By by having assumptions of either, you're going to try and compare that assumption to the other. So it just doesn't, it's similar, but it's just not the same thing. But people are going to see it for that journey,
I'd argue that Coldplay have never done anything as annoying and as pop as moves like Jagger.
No.
But you can't deny that Coldplay have done pop songs, aka songs that have taken elements from the popular music of the era that it's in. Like Paradise is like, obviously influenced by the music that was around there, and especially their latest album, Music of the Spheres, like with the 80s kind of resurgence and My Universe being very synth heavy. Like there's no denying that, but I would say they've never gone as pop as moves like Jagger.
No.
But yeah, the more I listen to Coldplay, the more that just seemed like such a weird thing to put together. And there's got to be a band like even like the Fray, but the thing is with the Fray is that it's only a really early Coldplay, first 2 albums, maybe even the first 3. Like, but it just goes to show how unique and different Coldplay are.
The script are kind of similar.
Yeah, but even then, like
maybe a bit rawer.
They got Will.i.am on a track. Like there's rapping on there, which Coldplay haven't gone into. I mean, I guess with the BTS thing, there is a bit of rapping in there. Yeah, but then I don't know. I guess the script were influenced by Coldplay. Because again, that's hard to say. I remember Coldplay now with 22 years in, like people are influenced by them. That's even hard to pick. You could even say Kings of Leon, but then that's got more like a rock edge to it. Any points that anyone else wants to make? I've got one on like production with a question. But any from you two in terms of what they've done well or what they don't do well, or just anything regarding any albums, anything you want to say?
My only point would have been in terms of production, it's just they've kept up with production over the years. They've done really well with that in terms of getting in different producers, obviously Brian Eno, etc.
Yeah.
I think that's just something that they've been really good at and developed really well over the time. That's kind of my only point that I'd add on to that, really.
Let's get on to that. And so, every album sounds brilliant. The mixing and mastering is on point. No instrument is left buried, mistreated. There's no this album has no bass. This album's crap sounding, or you can only listen to it on this format. Like they nail it every time. We get intimate recordings with room noise all the way to polished and pristine with nothing left except for what's needed. And I don't think this is the dividing opinion here. So I don't think any of it holds too much importance in the world of Coldplay. Now, when I say production, when I say that, I'm talking when you mix and master an album. I'm not saying in terms of the soundscapes they're bringing in and instruments and what you're hearing. I'm saying like the glue that holds it all together. That's the best way I can say it to like non-musos. There could be an argument made that if they took some sheen off of their pop era albums, so I'm saying Milo, Xylotto onwards, the albums as a whole would have a stronger narrative throughout. But damn, what do you kind of think of that counter argument in terms of really the mixing and mastering of a Coldplay record doesn't really add anything? Like I'm not thinking like the low end's way better on here, or like, wow, the kick drum on this, or the way that vocal kind of sheens and all these things. So that's part A of the question, because I always have parts of the question. And if you were to take out all of the sheen, all of the pristine pop goodiness that you get on a mixing and mastering off of their pop era albums, if you want to call it that, what do you reckon would happen if you did that? So they're 2 separate questions, very, very tangented. Please do your best. do you want me to say them again? Shall I say the first one?
Right, sure. Do both. Right, first question.
First question is,
make it short and snappy, and I'll come at you.
I don't think the actual mixing and mastering and the production of a Coldplay on Coldplay is that important to their songs. For instance, it doesn't matter if the bass drum isn't that punchy, or the guitar doesn't have the exact same frequency or whatnot. I feel like it doesn't make that much of a difference. What do you think of that as opposed to your comment?
I believe that as production, as as they grew through the albums, production definitely took a bigger role. I mean, you think of Every Teardrop's a Waterfall, you know, the idea that they've had to suddenly change the way they process the music after the instrumentation's been decided. They need to go, okay, well, you know, this needs a certain master. This might need some sort of it might need a certain compression that can bring out those lows that can actually affect people. You know, it's what I'm trying to think of the name of the sort of compression. It's not coming to me, but it's more used the sort of compression that's used to really highlight kicks and to give kicks
side
room
chain
to breathe. Side chain, yeah. So the side chain compression sort of element and adding that sort of feel to it, because that creates a lot of feel towards music. Is that sort of element of everything that's after the songs themselves, you know.
So yeah, in terms of the production, then I guess how I could rephrase it is much like with the guitar parts, where you don't really recognize they're there, but you actually need them. Maybe that's the same thing happening. That actually there is a lot of production that needs to happen, but they do it in a way that you don't actually need to hear it. It's like sidechain compression, where if you actually dial it up to the point where people can hear it, it doesn't sound good. So, would you agree?
The subtleties.
The subtleties. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mez, any thoughts on the production? That aspect?
I mean, it's all very, very clean. It's all very, very clean. I think I've noticed one or two moments in their discography where, or that there's probably more. There's just a couple that have stuck out to me where there's like a feedback and a gain increase as everything sort of climaxes and hits the top point. But I think I'd still call that clean, because it's not a feature throughout an entire track, which is how I see production. No. It's an entire painting, isn't it? You know, and every sort of everything is sort of lending to that painting. But no, it's very, very clean. It's very nicely produced, I would say. There's nothing that kills me a little bit. Some of the effects that they will use for guitars and stuff, it's all very, very friendly. And I think that makes it more accessible for people, obviously. I mean, we know Brian Eno. Which one was he on? I've completely lost track there.
He's on a couple, isn't he?
Yeah, he is on a couple. But that's the name I wanted to bring up. Marcus Draves. He co-produced. Sorry, I'm babbling here. So I'm pretty sure he co-produced with Brian Eno on and I can't even say the name of the album now.
Is it Milo Xylotto?
That's the boy, Milo Xylotto. They were both on that, which is quite insane, because Marcus specifically, he's worked with some big names. I think he was on Viva La Vida as well, Marcus Draves, and I think we've already said, but that's where their sound starts to change somewhat, and it becomes bigger. And it becomes more sort of, is grandiose the right word that I'm looking for? It's like a bit too much.
But that album, I thought that was the start of their pop period because of the single Viva La Vida. Completely wrong. That's still like a rock record, and it's great. It's great.
But that grandiosity, I mean, he's worked with people like Mumford and Sons. So that fresh, new, crisp sort of sound, you can hear that come through. But I've always found it to be quite pleasant, you know, throughout everything I've heard of theirs. It's very pleasant. It's very easy on the ears. And like I've already said, I feel that brings it back around to the people can sort of listen to it, as opposed to like a 2010s noise rock, math rock band who are just basically there to create output. It's not necessarily about how it sounds. It's sound, you know, and I feel like that's a key feature of theirs. You know, it's simple, but it's crisp.
Mm-hmm.
It's creative and layered, but there's something for my ears to hang on to, and I think the production lends itself to that. To be honest, that's how I feel about
I think
It's
you're correct, Mez. I think you're correct.
yeah, he's people like Brian Eno, Marcus Drabs, they're not going to be producing Slipknot's new record next week. Do you know what I mean? There's a very it would probably sound
be so
absolutely
weird.
amazing though. Imagine it. It'd probably sound incredible.
All I can think in my head is them covering Beautiful Day, but like in the style of Slipknot. It still has the same intro. It's like, and it's just all noise.
What's it like?
One
One more time. Yeah, I respect that. No, I feel like because of their their history and what they have worked on before, I wouldn't say it's singling anything out for you to listen to, but it's picking up the bits like you were saying about the guitar underneath the piano and stuff, and knowing the relevance of where to place things in a mix. We've all done basic mixes and advanced mixes to some degree on various tracks. And I think we had exercises of BIM where it was like, here's stems of a track, go and mix that.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of sit there and you're like, fuck, what do I do? And sometimes it comes out amazing, and other times it comes out as just in your right ear, you've got, and in your left ear, you've got, and it's just one big mess. But it's finding that balance. There's definitely an art form to it, and there has been for years, ever since the Beatles first happened in stereo. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
Beatles are rubbish, mate. Don't listen to them.
They are crap.
They are really,
terrible.
really bad. Yeah, really
crap.
Bad. Really
absolutely bad. Oh, mate, I hate them. But
no,
I think there is definitely there's a subtlety to it, but also it's subtle on purpose, so you can hear everything crisp and clear. I think that's my opinion. You don't have to believe it or agree with it. But that's my opinion.
I like that. Dan, one last question. If you were to take the sheen, pristine production off of their pop era period, and that again is Milo Xylotto onwards, discounting Everyday Life, do you think it would add a bit more of like a stronger narrative, or like would be in more public favor, and we wouldn't have this Coldplay have gone pop kind of slogan?
That's a tricky question, because
it was meant to be tricky.
It is meant to be tricky because, like, are you saying that if they have the exact same songs but different instrumentation, is this what you're saying, or different actual end product to the way it's processed?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like
weird.
Yeah, I'm like saying one thing, but it's almost like I'm saying like, well, if they had guitars on it and they did this and did that or whatever. But I think I'm trying to say like, so look at my universe, right? So let's say it's still BTS, it's still Coldplay, it's still very synth heavy or higher power. Let's take those two singles. Actually, let's take the first three singles off of Music for the Spheres, which is, I think it's called like the one with Selena Gomez, something like Letting Love Go, something like that. I really like that. I think that's the strongest one off of it. It's basically what I'm trying to say is like, imagine everyday life. I've got the question. Imagine if Music for the Spheres was produced in the same way everyday life was. So there's that progression there. There's still a risk they're taking. Kind of imagine those songs, because there's pop moments on everyday life, but not to the point of like maximum volume as My Universe is, something like that, higher power. Do you think that would create a more stronger work? Do you think that would have a narrative to all the other albums that you could go, oh, I can hear shades of Viva La Vida in higher power because they have that piano sound? You know what I'm saying? Like I had with the Him for the Weekend thing and all that kind of lineage, where you can go, well, this album doesn't actually sound like this. This one sounds like 10 years ago, kind of, but it still sounds fresh. That's the best way I can describe it. So everyday life kind of style production onto their latest record. Do you think it would make a difference?
Oh.
Do you like my really, really long rambling questions? They're great, aren't they? They're so good.
It's a tough one, that. I mean, if they went for it in the same style as Everyday Life and tried to progress it, I think they've I think between those albums, they've gone from trying to tell a big story to just trying to give you little ones over the course of an album.
Yeah.
And I think if they had the exact same songs on Music of the Spheres and tried to maybe production wise change it so it is a continuous story, then it will mess with the juju of it trying to be a pop album, but also have that story. And I don't think it would maybe stay as relevant or as interesting as Everyday Life. I think if you took away those elements, because it would lose it. These are it to me, yeah. And as we've discussed, Music of the Spheres is definitely something that is created with a complete different idea in mind to the idea of writing something that explores a story and explores maybe a sound narrative. So I think it wouldn't work the same as Everyday Life would.
I agree. I think that albums, it's nice that albums all sound different to each other. I think that's great. So we'll leave it at that, eh? Football fan perspective. So what I want them to be. I only have two things. I want more acoustic guitar-led songs because I really enjoy them. I'm talking stuff like Guns, things like that. And no more duets. For some reason, I just don't want duets from Coldplay. I don't want collaborations. I just want Coldplay to be Coldplay like that. Any football fan perspectives, Merit? Is there anything you want Coldplay to be more
Just
of?
give me a minute.
Oh, he's in a bit of a rebranding. Go on, lad. You figure that out.
In terms of your football fan perspective, myself being a football fan.
Oh yeah.
The one thing I think of when relating football to this is after watching Coldplay at Glastonbury, I think it was their like fifth or sixth song from the end. It wasn't like at the end, but it was in the end of that sort of middle part of the set list. They played Viva La Vida.
Yeah.
And obviously everyone chanting the main hook. But when the whole set finished, after still playing how many different bangers afterwards, there must have been over 100,000 people there, and at least 80,000 of them were doing the all of them were doing it. Like everyone was walking away doing it, and it felt like a football crowd in the way that when I go see a football game, I love being immersed in the crowd and the feeling of it and the passion of it. And I had that same feeling from watching Coldplay afterwards, which is so bizarre, but that's what it was. That's what it was. And it's just really interesting. Mad. But yeah.
That's mad.
Merit, if you want to go. What do you want?
What do I want?
What would you want them to be? Is there anything more, less, something that you wish you did?
Honestly, I would have liked them to go more arty and sort of a bit messed up because the early albums are sort of, I'd say there are some sections where they do go a bit mad, but it would have been nice to see them absolutely lose their shit and see what happens. Do you know what I mean? Just like, let's just jam an album. Let's see what happens. Let's make an album where we're all playing bass. You know what I mean? Because if they're very, very creative, but I just want to see them bad. Maybe I don't know, maybe I'm pulling on strings there, but that's what I think. I'd love to have heard a bit more of the arty side of it, a bit weird, you know, because there were elements of what I'd call progressive rock.
Yeah.
In what they were doing. They call it alternative. I call it progressive. Go away with your newfound fundled words. No, I'd like to have seen more progressive, more sort of arty noise elements added in, to be honest, to see what happens, you know?
I like that. You do get some of that in Everyday Life. I think the first track, there's like this guitar that's like, it's like they just switched it on and started recording and he's just everywhere and then he starts finding his part.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's kind of cool. Whether it's premeditated or not, I have no idea. But like, yeah, I just want more Everyday Life, basically. I just wanted to kind of explore that. I thought that was cool they did that so late on into their career. Coldplay top 5 for me, in no order. Amsterdam, Trouble in Town, God Put a Smile Upon Your Face, just because it's a skate video classic. Everything's Not Lost, because of Scrubs. And Guns. That would be my top 5 Coldplay songs. Mez, any favourites that stuck out?
The first 4 albums, and that's what you're getting.
Like, they are great.
That's what you're getting, mate.
It's so strong.
I never got bored of it. I never got bored of those. I mean, not that I'm saying I got bored of the others, but the first 4, they just cemented it for me. I was like, if I, in future now, when I want to hear Coldplay, I'm going to listen to these first 4 albums. And yeah, I mean, I'll get to know the others more. I really feel like I focused in on the first 4 records in this pod. But there's a reason behind it. They really sort of hooked me in with that.
Yeah.
In terms of what I like the least, I'd definitely say the latest.
Yeah, I'd probably just lump
Simply
near
because
enough the whole thing.
Yeah, simply because I didn't dislike it, but I'm struggling to remember songs from it. You know?
Indeed.
And if I can't remember the songs from it, how can I recommend them to my mates and to future mates?
There you go.
So true.
There you go. And another very, very quick point. Coldplay never outstay their welcome. All their albums seem to be the perfect length. The songs seem to be great. They seem to be packed with the right structure. The only 2 which I felt dragged was the last track on Music of the Spheres, which is Coloratura. It's like 10 minutes. Got very bored. It was just like, I need this to end. And A Rush of Blood to the Head, the song itself. I was like, okay, it fell kind of singer-songwritery, just kind of dragged a bit.
Wrong.
They were the only 2 songs that I was just like, I felt that like I needed to skip it. Everything else, brilliant.
You're incorrect, Marv. Sorry, mate.
Well, you may be incorrect, but I've now come back for you, so I'm just going to make a joke out of my voice.
I know where you live, mate. You forget.
Yeah, I know where you live as well, mate. So you might want to.
Good, come and fight me, IRL.
Yeah,
1v1 me.
Dan Canvin, do you have kind of like a top 5 Coldplay songs, or in any order, or anything you love?
I love loads of their songs. I guess that's why I'm the expert here.
He is the expert. That's true.
I've said before, like, Paradise has meant a lot to me. That's as much as it's a song from their newer era. It's something that really hits me. And it also defines the sort of time of my life where I was super into them. I mean, Milo Exoto, I listened to that album so many times. And like even like Major Minus and tracks like that on there are solid. Charlie Brown, like the weird like the little sounds and stuff just got me really intrigued on that album, and that definitely is a big part of it. But Shiver, I love Shiver, the track. I love the instrumentation on it. So simple, just awesome. In My Place, when that rhythm comes in, the drums come in at the beginning, it's just like, here we go. Awesome. Fix You, I think it's a classic, it's a single, everyone knows it, but purely because I've seen it live and the effect it has on an audience and feeling that within a crowd is second to none. Honestly, it's like me saying Enter Sandman for when it kicks in, but like it's that similar feeling, you know. God Put a Smile on Your Face is good. I quite enjoyed Lost. That there's also a version with Jay-Z on it. I kind of actually enjoyed that. I mean, there's so many. Yeah, Trouble's good. Clocks. But
you could just go on, can you?
I could go on. I'll stop, but I'll go to my worst.
Go on, then.
Ghost Stories did nothing for me. When it hit me up, maybe musically, you know, if I actually revisited it properly and sat down and went through it, and you know, for this I briefly went through every album. I knew most of what was going on, but Ghost Stories was something that it came out after my sort of obsession with Milo Exoto, and I was just disappointed where it went. And it just didn't really. A Sky Full of Stars, you know, you had every teardrop, but then A Sky Full of Stars. But you look at what songs are around both songs, and Ghost Stories was just like magic. Doesn't really do a lot for me. Maybe the lyrical themes weren't great. It felt repetitive a little bit. Milo Exoto at least went out a little bit and sort of expanded out. Everyday Life is awesome. also for everyone listening to the podcast, I highly recommend going on YouTube, Everyday Life out Coldplay live run through, and they did both sides of the album, sunrise and sunset, on different rooftops at those times, and it's incredible. It's amazing. Watch it.
We'll have to link it down below.
I have to link it. Yeah,
I'll give it a link.
Music the Spheres doesn't really do anything for me, but you can recognize it's Coldplay and it's okay. But Ghost Stories to me can just get in the bin.
I mean, I think it was. I mean, he just got divorced at that point, or they split up. It feels very. It's not as colourful because they got more colourful as the albums went on. That one took a little bit of a dip, and the fact that the last track on every single album is always quite expansive and quite like anthemic feeling, to then suddenly go into something which is so insular and it's just kind of stripped down. And I like it because there's a lot of acoustic guitar playing and minimalist kind of style to it. Maybe it's the minimalist thing of you, and the fact that if Milo meant so much to you, that expectation that Ghost Stories had to have for you would just never reach it. And we've all done it with albums, but that might be why you don't like it.
That's part of it. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of emotional, turbulence, maybe the term for it. But
let me tell you what you don't like about it, Dan. All right, because I know. All right. Christ, what am I like?
Yeah, you got it.
You know what? I'm all Coldplayed out, lads. I think I've gone through it. I've gone through all the stuff. I've all the nooks and crannies and stuff. There's only one question to ask, Mez. All right, but we don't do it all the time. That's it. Get your ear in, right? Dan doesn't need to because Dan's already a fan. But he is going to though. Can you say you are a fan of Coldplay, James Merritt?
Nah, Acer, mate. Terrible.
It's wasted really time this podcast.
Terrible. Nah, I am. I will be returning.
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of Coldplay now. I never thought I'd say that. Absolutely never. I am actually like kind of invested in what they're going to do next. I think I've hugely misjudged them, and I've let other people's opinions, and then my opinion of what I think other people thought, dictate what I actually think. They are a great band, and they are still a band, and that's what I'm going to go with. Dan, there's no arguments here. We're on your side now. You've got 2 new Coldplay fans, so now we can geek and nerd out. Next time we're on a gig, and actually no, Rob won't be in the van, so we could blast Coldplay all night long.
Hey, there you go.
Let's do it. Sorry, Rob. I know you're my
let's
cousin,
do it.
but whatever. But there you go. I think that's a good positive ending to the pod. Thank you for this past year. It's been great. All the guests, everyone who's commented, everyone who's subscribed and all that. We all obviously, we rip everyone for comedic intent and semi-serious, but you know what it is. But we do appreciate everyone who's given us any money or contributed any way to this. I just did it as a passion project along with Mez, and it's nice that we can connect people. We can chat to people. We've listened to some weird ass music, and we've listened to some great music that we thought was going to be bad. And I've got to look at his face like that even more these days. I can't bloody believe it. Aren't we just handsome? Mez, do you want to sign us off? Mez, you're really good at signing us off. You know what I mean? I don't really have much to say, and I can't come up with something funny or witty that, kind of fits in. I'm more the editing guy. So, Mez, give us your nice year roundup and then smash us out with the outro now, all right?
Listen to Coldplay. They're good.
That's it, lads.